So, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for another Roomvo University webinar. As you know, we do these every 2 months and look forward to bringing you experts to speak about their craft. We're also always looking for feedback and guest recommendations. So if there's ever anyone that you know that might be a great guest for our webinar, feel free to reach out to me following our webinar today. Would love to pick your brain to hear a little bit more about them. As always, I have two really exciting updates on the Roomvo side of things that I wanted to share with you all today. The first is Roomvo Direct. And Roomvo Direct is a new integration of Roomvo that's embedded directly into your product page to provide a simpler version of Roomvo. Shoppers have the ability to interact with the product directly from the product page, including zooming, rotating, and moving around items. Once a shopper uploads a photo of their space, their room automatically appears on every additional product page that they view. And so with that, I wanted to share an example of a customer that is currently using Roomvo Direct. Roomvo Direct is actually live across all of our Roomvo sites customers, as well as all of our Roomvo catalog customers. So here's an example of a customer that's on Roomvo sites today. We click on products and click on floors or hardwood, for example, and we're brought into their product catalog. So we can browse their luxury vinyl offerings. From their product listing page, you can click on any one of these product swatches and it takes you to the product display page where you'll see Roomvo Direct lives directly in the product carousel. Customers can now directly from the product display page upload a photo of their room. So I'm going to click the upload my room button and I'm going to upload a photo of our office space here today. So you'll be able to see what this product looks like in the office. So you'll see that's the existing product. Now it's overlaid with this new product. You can interact with the product by zooming in and out. We can rotate the product by 90 degrees to see a different installation pattern. And directly from this experience, we can expand into the full Roomvo experience where you'll be able to browse the product catalog to see other products that you might want to look at in your space, or also be able to upload additional room scenes as well. So you'll see that room scene that I uploaded is going to present itself on the screen here. We'll give it a second to load. It might be the Wi-Fi in the office that's given me a little bit of a harder time, but maybe what we'll do as well is we'll try looking at this. So here we go. Our room scene is uploaded. You'll see that the product that we entered the visualizer with from Roomvo Direct now appears here. And we're seeing that customers that engage with Roomvo Direct, they are interacting with it at 25% higher than they would if they weren't using Roomvo Direct. So we're getting a lot more eyeballs on your products, a lot more product engagement as well. And so now your customers are coming into the showroom with a lot better of an idea of what they're wanting to see in their space, having had the opportunity to interact with Roomvo as well as Roomvo Direct. In addition to that, we have also recently launched our visualizer redesign, which provides a more intuitive interface, driving higher engagement as well as conversions. And some of the key changes include more focus on the room, and that makes it the focal point of the visualizer, as well as an emphasis on primary actions like sharing, comparing, and downloading. So you'll notice that this experience here is a lot fresher and clean than what you used to have with your Roomvo visualizer. The compare feature, you'll notice it's very accessible down in the bottom right corner. So we can look at, products side by side. We're also seeing that customers are downloading images at a 2 times more than they were with our previous design. So we're getting a lot more engagement here and a lot more customers into the visualizer and being able to take all of these great features that we have available to them. So those are the 2 new features, Roomvo Direct and our visualizer redesign. Everyone in the audience should have received a quarterly newsletter from your Roomvo rep highlighting these updates. But if you do have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to your Roomvo rep and they'll be happy to further explain. So with that, let's get this webinar going with an intro for my co-host, Jim Armstrong. Jim is an internationally known trainer and coach for flooring dealers and the founder and president of Flooring Success Systems, a marketing services and coaching program for dealers. Since 2007, thousands of retailers across the US and Canada have relied on Jim's methods to get more customers, get higher margins, gain an unfair advantage over the box stores, and live the lifestyle that they deserve. He's also an avid skydiver. Welcome, Jim. Happy to have you.
Thank you so much. And speaking of skydiving, I'm in Colorado right now. We live in Nevada. And I came out here, got my 500th skydive in. So that's kind of a big that's kind of a big, milestone for those of us lunatics who are willing to jump out of planes. So I'm very proud of that accomplishment. Thank you. And I'm still here to do the show. And so the last thing you said, in my bio that you read, helping floor dealers live their ideal lifestyle. That ties directly into why we have today's guest. I was reading, I'm also the marketing mastery columnist for FC News, and I was reading through a recent issue, and I came across a fantastic article by our guest, Megan Mazzocco, who she was talking about burnout in the design and architecture industries. And everything she was saying about those industries in terms of burnout and stressful work environments and on, overwork, not having a life outside of business, just feeling like their career owned them, absolutely applies to floor dealers. Half of my coaching is around helping floor dealers set up their business so that that they're able to have less stress, have freedom and walk away power, and create a positive work environment. And so I knew I had to get Megan on here. So I immediately fired off a link for the article to read and said, we got to get her on here. And so I think that was last month. So we made it happen quick. And Megan, thank you so much for coming on and being willing to share with us today on avoiding floor dealer burnout. Welcome, and thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It is a pleasure and a privilege to be here with you all. I am just going to jump right in because I think we have a lot to cover and not a lot of time for this big, I guess, story. It was encapsulated into a very short column, but there's a lot to it. So I will share my screen really quickly. Just for a moment. And, oh, there we go. Let you know about how the origin of all of this about sleep and burnout kind of flowed to me. This is all about me and my sleep fail. So going from human flourishing and designing your life and work within your boundaries to thrive, which is where I'm at today, and then sitting in a wheelbarrow, looking at basically the demolition around me, is where I started from. Because I thought, have you ever heard of burnout? Apparently you guys have. But
And I must say, Megan, you look very burned out in this photo. You look way better now. Day difference.
Thank you. So I actually considered myself immune to burnout because It's not a medical diagnosis. And I was like, Dunkin', like Megan runs on Dunkin'. Of course, the coffee, not the donuts. And I was killing it for 3 commercial design magazines. I think I told you Architectural Products, Architectural SSL, and Net Zero Buildings, reporting on everything from curtains to curtain wall. But of course, the flooring category was my favorite to report on. And so when I was going to have my second child, I elected to work from home. And I mommed all day. And then I worked all night. And I told myself, you can sleep on business trips about once a month. But even overseas, I was inculcated into what my co-host on Architects as Healers, Buildings as Medicine calls the culture of architecture. So me and my colleagues, my contemporaries in journalism, and also architects and designers, we were working across time zones to meet deadlines. It was ludicrous. And one time at a reception in Chicago, I turned around just in time to watch my friend, who is an architect in the Philippines and the US, collapse of exhaustion. And so it's no surprise that the curtain call on my caffeine fuel career came to a close in the emergency room. Because I had thought, I'm just not working hard enough. I just need to drink more coffee. But at this point, I had panicked and was hyperventilating. I felt like bugs were crawling up my legs and the tops of my thighs had gone numb.
Wow.
And I had liquid collecting between my skin and my organs. And I turned from side to side, showing the emergency room doctors how my belly behaved just like a lava lamp. And they ran some tests and they were unimpressed. They were unfazed. They sent me home. They said, just don't eat so much salt. Salt. So I think this time I reasoned with myself that I had eaten too much celery, especially the non-organic kind, which is the most pesticide-laden produce in the country. So I went home and I soldiered on. I kept doing the things. But
Wow.
I was always second guessing myself and saying like, oh, Megan, you're overreacting. There's no excuse for your fatigue. And I couldn't hold a thought long enough. My word recall was terrible. So I couldn't do my job, like write a column, let alone a feature. I turned away from my marriage when I heard my spouse telling someone that I was a hypochondriac. And my patience with my children and my pets was non-existent. And every day of my life ended in a shame spiral. So as you can imagine, I was desperate to feel better, and I was desperate to feel my legs again. So
Let me ask you, Megan, how long were you in business? How long had you been in your career before you got so
my
bad?
youngest was born. I think it was 6 years.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, nothing's wrong with me, but why do I feel like this? So have you guys ever Googled your symptoms?
Oh yeah.
Well,
Yeah. Scary.
You definitely don't want to do that.
yeah, I don't recommend it. But I was so desperate to feel better that that's what I did. I started watching YouTubes of people with my same symptoms. And after a comedy of trial and error, the second to last test I had was for mold toxicity. And then the last test I had was a German lab for the 5 co-infections of Lyme. And that lab came back with a weak positive. And I was like, okay, why, if it's a weak positive, like, why do I feel so negative, like so terrible?
How many hours a week were you putting in at this point, approximately?
Um, well, it wasn't just work. It was work and life.
Well, you have kids. Kids are a full-time job by themselves.
Right.
You're putting in 80 or 100 hours a week.
It really wasn't a matter of how much I was working. It was how much I was not sleeping, and how that is just a cascade of a health disaster. And so the Lyme doctor said, he said, well, this is sleep deprivation, severe burnout and sleep deprivation exacerbated by long undiagnosed Lyme's disease. So it was just like something that was along for the ride. And so he prescribed me some medication, some meditation, and sleep. So like any good type A perfectionistic patient, I researched everything sleep, and I also hired a Buddhist monk because I was going to rest like I mean it. And that led me to understand that sleep is the #1 predictor of health outcomes, and not just physical health, but mental health outcomes. And the World Health Organization has declared sleep deprivation an epidemic in every industrialized country. And the CDC in this country concurs that 1 in 3 adults is sleep deprived. So it could be one of us, or it could be some of you who are watching right now.
I know from my own, as I've gotten older, I've had to be more intentional about my health, things that when I was 20, I could eat 2 Big Macs and go work out. You can't do that anymore when you're in your 50s. You'll wind up in the ER. But I've learned that sleep problems or sleep deprivation is upstream from so many medical problems, hormone imbalances, weight gain, depression, just on and on and on.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, it's kind of like burnout. Like burnout's not a medical diagnosis. And physicians in medical school, they maybe spend 1 hour on sleep. So it's really strange because it's all connected. It's the #1 predictor of your health outcomes. So it's really strange that it's not taught in our medical system.
Well, the medical system is designed so that if you've got a bunch of symptoms from sleep deprivation, you're going to get medicine and drugs for all those symptoms. You're going to get medicine for the weight gain, the depression, the hormones. There's not, I don't know that there's huge money in sleeping pills or helping people just to learn to sleep better. That's really not where the money is in the medical industry. It's in, treating all these symptoms of it.
Yeah. Some might call it the pharmaceutical industrial complex.
I would be one of those that would call it that.
I would concur. But it's a reality that 51% of adults in this country feel sleepy 3 to 7 days a week. So that's full time, even when they're trying to restore themselves on the weekend. And one thing that recently occurred in like the medical knowledge is why sleep is a biological imperative. And that, because it's like, we would be very vulnerable, when we're sleeping, evolutionarily. But actually, during sleep, it's the only time that your brain cells shrink and the lymphatic fluid comes in and like literally cleans the hallways of your brain of plaques and proteins and amyloids that are associated with Alzheimer's and poor cognitive health outcomes. And sleep deprivation also causes your body to produce more norepinephrine, which increases your heart rate and your blood pressure and your blood sugar. And this actually can lead to a sense of anxiety or fight or flight. And Dr. Ellen Vora, she is a Harvard-trained psychiatrist and also an integrative medicine practitioner. She calls this false anxiety in her book, The Anatomy of Anxiety. And she reports that she can treat 80% of those false anxiety patients with a simple sleep reset. So knowing that, and I know we just said this, Jim, but a lot of us are walking around sleep deprived and over medicated.
Yep.
So back to my friend, the architect, who I watched collapse of exhaustion. Well, her doctors, they told her nothing was wrong either. They said, just stay hydrated. So in her search for answers, she found that RIBA, the Royal Institute of British Architects, had a well-being toolkit for their members that described healthy boundaries between work and technology and healthy expectations of working hours and working conditions and quality of life for design professionals. And she's like, Megan, AIA, the American Institute of Architects, has nothing like this. You need to make one. So that's why I created the AD Wellness Toolkit and the A&D Wellness Toolkit for daily creative renewal. So basically, it focuses on holding the boundaries around the foundations of health in order to sustain creativity on demand and avoid burnout. And I noticed that when I started doing these micro practices, it really not only enhanced my creativity, but it enhanced my total well-being and my ability to sleep and wake up feeling rested and enthusiastic and joyful. And I learned that creative rest is actually one of 7 different types of rest that you need in order to get adequate sleep. So I have a slide for that so everybody can keep track if you want to see. I will share.
By the way, I encourage everybody, take screenshots of this information.
All right. Yeah, and I can share the presentation as well. So, like I said, I discovered that creative rest is one of 7 different kinds of rest. And the woman who studied this, her name was Dr. Sandra Dalton Smith, and she was an internal medicine physician who continued to practice 80 hours a week after she had 2 children. And she experienced a burnout that was so severe that even when she went back to holding the boundaries around the foundations of health, starting with sleep, no matter how much she slept, she never felt rested. So she took an inventory of all the other areas of her daily life that were draining her. Or maybe they were replaying in her mind before it was time to sleep, or when she might wake up in the middle of the night, which is totally normal, by the way, and most of us do. So creative rest, spiritual rest, social rest, sensory rest, emotional rest, mental rest, and physical rest. So we'll start with the more kind of weird sounding ones, I guess. So creative rest is the time that you just like doodle or play or look up at the clouds and make pictures in your mind, or even just create some kind of creative white space. Like maybe you're just throwing paint on a canvas, whatever it is that feels. Those adult coloring books, like those mandalas, those are also, that's a form of creative rest.
My wife is always working on one of those.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And it's not because she has it's not because she wants a career in coloring. It's exactly what you're saying. And I just want to say something, flooring is, you dealers out there, I've been working with you guys for almost 20 years. You're very meat and potatoes, cut and dry. It's very, you're very practical, and I appreciate that about floor dealers. And one of the reasons I wanted you to come on, Megan, is to introduce some new concepts that we don't hear about a lot in the flooring industry. Design is a very creative space where you're going to hear things about spirituality and emotional rest and the things you've listed here. We don't hear that much in this industry. And so what I just want to encourage all the dealers who are listening to this isn't the typical thing you're going to hear at TICE or on most webinars or most of the things, we're not talking about the latest in LVT. We're not talking about, the latest digital, whatever. This is very different. And I want to encourage everybody on here, as you're listening, to keep an open mind to this. It's why Reed and I brought Megan on here. This is something you guys really need to hear. It's not the normal stuff. It's why when I read her article, I said, we've got to get her on here. You guys need this. So as you were talking, Megan, I felt like I needed to step in and say that, because this is outside the box for our industry. It really is.
I always say that you are the invisible made visible. So like we are the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more going on behind the scenes and in the subconscious that day to day, in order to get done what you have to get done, it's not allowed to kind of take up space. But this woman who was an internal medicine physician, she's like, okay, I know burnout's not a medical diagnosis, but here I am, and I have to figure out like what it is that I need to get optimal sleep in order to wake up feeling energized. And it's all these programs, like apps running in the background, that are actually draining us, that we need to attend to in our waking hours. So the spiritual rest is just the idea that you are contributing to something greater, something bigger than yourself. So it may not be your business, but it may be the involvement that you have in your community, and then social rest is about our relationships. So some relationships and social events and people really fill us up and leave us, energized. And other relationships are really draining. So it's up to us to pay attention which ones are uplifting and energizing and which ones are draining, and then really act accordingly, even in your life's work. And the sensory rest, this one is really tough in the construction industry, in, being on site, because noise pollution and glare are pervasive, and the noise pollution actually increases our blood pressure. So there needs to be micro breaks or areas of respite where we can go away for a minute and just have just like that quiet. Because you don't realize how draining that actually is on the nervous system. Actually, the World Health Organization has declared noise pollution number 2 cause of death only to air pollution.
Wow.
True story. Yeah. So that's why sensory rest is so critical. And then emotional rest is just the idea that you have someone in your life, or even your own resonating witness, like somebody who's witnessing you and you're telling them a story, and it doesn't matter what you're telling them, but they say, of course you would feel that way. Like emotional rest is basically validation, right? And mental rest, now this is where it gets serious in terms of what's actually happening in the industry. And unfortunately, burnout is not just a thing in the architecture and design industry. It's huge in the medical and health care field. And in fact, 63%, if you're thinking about your business succession and longevity, 63% of young people have significant symptoms of anxiety and depression. And 68% of millennials and 81% of Gen Zers have actually quit jobs, left jobs for mental health reasons. So mental health, mental rest is the ability to quiet the mind and to stop feeling like everything is urgent. So that might be a guided meditation or a breathing exercise that really just gets you to focus and ground. And then in terms of physical rest, obviously passive physical rest is sleep. And we all need that. And then there's other active physical rest where you lay in a hammock for 10 minutes and look up at the trees and the leaves and notice the wind. Like that is a passive physical rest. And you can concentrate on, like, if you can't get out into nature, like focus on a plant. I mean, that would even be a passive physical rest. But what these all require is for us to be cognizant of taking micro breaks throughout the day. And that can be a little bit of a difficult habit. But actually, when I was becoming a rest warrior, I learned that our modern day gladiators, AKA professional athletes, actually have their own sleep coaches. And not because they're sleeping competitively, but because they are getting paid to rest like they mean it. Nothing is left to chance. And if you haven't ever considered treating yourself like a professional athlete when it comes to work and rest and recovery, you should, because you're not only using physical energy, you're using your brain to make decisions and snap judgments when things are not going to plan and you have to solve something on the fly. Your brain is only 2% of your body weight. It uses 20% of your energy. So I did a little analogy here, and it flashed me back to the ACTs. And sport is to athlete like job is to worker. So you should be thinking about treating work like a sport. And that is what I discovered to be the secret of avoiding burnout, because rest and recovery is equally as important as productivity and achievement. And all of your performance is going to cascade down from the sleep that you're getting and the rest that you're getting, because again, it's the number one predictor of your mental and your physical health outcomes.
So I just wanted to ask something. I make a comment and then ask a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I do everything, all 7 of those. I try and practice, and some of the things overlap. You know, I fly fish 2 or 3 times a week. I get out and I'm in a stream. I'm focused. It's meditative. There's benefits to it. I skydive when I can. I play music, and so many, like you said, sleep and rest is as important as productivity and creativity. It's actually the foundation to it. I've had brain fog so badly. I sit down to write just like you're talking about, Megan, and I can't write an article. I have to, it takes 3 times as long. So what kind of things, what sort of things would you recommend that dealers do in terms of, let's just say, taking a break, unplugging from work? What would be 1 or 2 practical things they could do to make that happen in their business and life?
Well, the first thing I would do is ask, what did you really enjoy doing as a child when there were no constraints on your time? And then how can you make that a priority again? And remember how it brought you joy, or it was meaningful and fulfilling, and really hold space for that. And it does. I mean, okay, so you can work really hard, and that takes a lot of willpower, but so does having the self-discipline to unplug and the will to hold space for yourself around the things that you truly enjoy, that fill you up. And so I would suggest whatever it is, just like you gave examples, whether it's playing music or getting out into nature. I know someone that has land that will just go walk his land with his shotgun. And he's like, I don't normally see many quail or pheasants, but at least I'm getting out there and I'm doing the walk, and I'm also creating the opportunity that
You
if
might bring home dinner.
Mm-hmm. And I also know some bow hunters, and you don't go out and shoot a deer every time from your tree stand, but you do sit in your tree stand for a very long time. So I know there's only a certain season for bow hunting if you don't, have your own land or make your own seasons. But again, you can always go sit in a tree. And if you want more passive rest, you can always set up a hammock. And those hammocks someone told me, the hammock is the one thing that I never knew I needed, and now I can't live without.
Yes. I want to circle back and say, I loved your sports analogy too, the athlete analogy. Athletes, they don't just manage their sleep, they manage what they put in their bodies. They manage what they dedicate their time to making sure their body's in shape to do their job. All those things line up. I love that analogy.
I think that they have this discipline, and they're also given a framework. And that's what we have to give ourselves, is that framework that we can be disciplined within, because everything is a deliberate choice. Nothing has power over you unless you give your power away to it. So I think that if we hold those boundaries, or if we commit to a deliberation process and really discern, well, what is going to benefit the most from me being in top condition?
Mm.
And it's your relationships. And the quality of your life is actually the quality of your relationships, business and community and neighborhood, anything, anywhere you go, it's all relationships. And so you will be serving not only yourself, but you'll be serving others, by keeping that. And then one like really simple, because I believe in the Pareto principle, which you would refer to as the 80-20 rule. Well, in this case, it's the 20-80 rule. You put in a little bit of effort and you get 80% results. And that is simply a gratitude practice. So if your family says grace before a meal, just say 3 good things that happened to you that day out loud, and maybe even go around the table. But just 1 week of doing that actually has residual effects on your well-being for 6 months, including the ability to get more restorative sleep.
Wow.
So if you need more restorative sleep, it's a simple, quick activity that really has a lot of ripples outwards. And if you already say grace or a blessing on your meal, then it's just automatic, right? You can just, it's called habit stacking. So
Yeah.
there's things that you already do that you can tag on something that will enhance your well-being or whatever that habit is, so that it benefits your body and your well-being.
As part of my nighttime ritual, I used to write down, I think it was 5 things I was grateful for that day. And I'm not doing it now. It faded away for no good reason whatsoever. But I love a lot of what you're saying as a reminder of things we may have heard before. Maybe we did it in the past, and maybe it's time to back up some of those habits.
It is also hard to do if you are a solopreneur, because you don't feel like you have that group of people that have the same values or support your values. So let's say if you value well-being or you value getting enough sleep, but you're all by yourself, you're isolated, and you don't know anybody else who does, it's going to be harder to take values aligned action. And that's another reason why work should be like a sport. It's teamwork, right? So the more people that you're surrounded with that share your values and support you in acting out your values, you will have better health outcomes for any kind of habits or behaviors that you would like to adopt or change. So yeah, so well-being and sleep is also a team sport. There is a woman named Kabibi Springs. She wrote her doctorate actually on treating work like a sport. And she's the one who mentioned taking mindful micro breaks throughout the day. And if you were able to even take a nap, a 20 to 30 minute nap, it restores your bioendocrine, your biomarkers back to the levels of somebody, and your immune health back to the levels of somebody who got a full night's sleep. So if you are sleep deprived occasionally, a nap is an evidence-based solution to bringing your body back up to the levels of full health, or like, like full life. If you're playing a video game and you need to like get that life token, that would be your nap. And
so the naps, a 20-minute nap can help overcome the debilitating effects of sleep deprivation. Not like a cure-all, but it can help restore that.
Okay, so there's two kinds of naps. There's the nap, which is the power nap, and that is a 26-minute nap, and that restores task proficiency by 30% and alertness by 50%. But if you want like the full-blown health benefits of restoring your health level to somebody who got a full night's sleep, that would be the 30-minute nap, and that's based on research that was out of the Sorbonne. And it's not something that I would say is a solution to a chronic sleep deprivation. But if you are somebody who has to engage in second or third shift work, which is a known carcinogen according to the World Health Organization, I would highly, highly recommend 30-minute naps. And there's also some people who have conditions like narcolepsy where naps are actually prescribed, medically prescribed.
Interesting. Okay. I also engage in regular naps. I take a nap almost every afternoon.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm not for any, I never did it for any health reasons, or it was just because I found myself fading, after afternoon, and even a short nap, it brings me back. So
yeah, the siesta culture, like they knew what they were doing. And a lot of the siesta cultures that removed the nap due to modern working business hours, they had a lot of poor health outcomes in their populations. And actually, this is kind of sobering, but the day after the time change, where you lose an hour of sleep, is the #1 day for heart attacks.
And is that when you spring forward or fall back? Help me.
You spring forward because you're losing that hour. So
yeah,
that's a tough day for everyone, I would imagine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that is, let me just share my slide one more time to remind you that you are an athlete and you can rest and recover like you mean it. And the rest of your team will thank you for it. And you will be modeling healthy boundaries and healthy habits and healthy behaviors. So I went over this before about sleep, but this is my parody of the Got Milk campaign, because I really think that it's more important that we sleep than we drink milk. And the other part about athletes and their job description is that they do play. So when we talk about the creative rest, really that's the equivalent of play. And a lot of people who play, they're playing games and they're moving their body. And movement is linked to positive cognitive health outcomes, or the ability to think, make snap judgments, make better decisions. It also increases your longevity. It emits it's this hormone that sounds like Clotho, because there was a Greek god that spun the length of your life, and it was Clotho. So it releases this hormone when you're doing movement or exercise that you can't supplement anywhere. So movement is great for your longevity. So definitely stick with any kind of sport that you enjoy. And then also any mechanical pressure on your body, your bones, your joints, and your muscles stimulates stem cell production. So that also keeps you vibrant and youthful and energetic. So that's another reason to treat work like a sport and think of yourself as an athlete. And then this is my last slide. So Wellbeing by Design helps individuals and organizations to design their lives and work within their parameters to thrive. And it is so aligned with what Jim is doing for his clients. And I'm happy to share Wellbeing by Design's framework for human flourishing.
Fantastic. So let's do this. Let's open it up to Q&A if we've got a few more minutes left. If you have any questions, put it in the Q&A box. Megan, tell us a little bit more about your business and how you help people and how people can get in touch with you.
So one of the things that I mentioned is napping, and that is an evidence-based sleep hygiene tip or rest tip. I actually wrote a book called The Sleep System, 28 Days to Better Sleep. And it's a pragmatic guide to designing the sleep that you love because it uses design thinking to deconstruct unhealthy sleep habits and reconstruct a healthy sleep hygiene. And in that book, there are 21 evidence-based sleep hygiene tips that will help to contribute to your energy, your ability to access joy. And I do sleep coaching in one-on-one or in group environments, because we know from studying blue zones that practicing well-being in community leads to lasting longevity, quality of life, and well-being. So I help people with their sleep if that's what they're interested in. I also help people with nutrition and highly epinutrient diets that promote healthy DNA methylation. So basically, depending on your lifestyle and what you're putting into your body and how you move and how you sleep, you can actually reverse your biological age by 3 years or more in 8 weeks. And so that's something that I help people with if they feel they need to concentrate on nutrition and movement. I'm also a certified yoga instructor, so I will put together any kind of movement, exercise that somebody would like according to, their injuries, their aches and pains, their stage of life, right? So I could teach yoga for longevity, or I can put together something for lower back pain or for hip pain, and help people to slowly and gently move in ways that are not only strengthening, but also increasing in flexibility. And those two things together are amazing for longevity and your physical body performance and balance, which is really important as we age. The other thing that goes along with Wellbeing by Design, we talked about the programs that are running in the background, like apps taking up your battery. There's subconscious limiting beliefs or programs that are running in the back of our minds that we are not even aware of. And I help clients to excavate those limiting beliefs and program in the opposite liberating beliefs. And so that's called Liberate by Design. And again, it is based in neuroscience and quantum physics. So there's everything that I teach and that I work on with my clients in terms of applying design thinking to all facets of well-being is all evidence-based and science-backed. And I also help people to remember, kind of like what I asked you before, what did you enjoy as a child, and kind of get back to that ability to access joy on a regular basis, with a vision statement for life and designing, kind of helping people to redesign their lives within their parameters to thrive, because it can't be prescriptive. It's got to be, okay, well, I know this and this and this, and then everything I do, I have, flexibility and wiggle room, but it's going to keep me within my parameters to thrive. So that's how I help people through functional medicine, sports movement, yoga, quantum physics, neuroscience of sleep.
Fantastic. So what I did is if people need more information, I put in the chat box for everyone, I put your email address.
Oh, thanks.
And somebody asked for the article that your article on FC News, so I put the link to that in the chat as well. If somebody wants to connect with you, is interested in working with you or learning more about these programs, should they just email you? Is that the best way to do it?
Yeah, they can email me, or if they're on LinkedIn frequently, they can just ping me on LinkedIn. Yeah, and I do publish frequently on the Wellbeing by Design LinkedIn page. So if you want to follow that as well, there will be thoughtful articles shared about everything from health and wellness to mindset. And along those lines, I just want to add that there is an assessment called the Be Well, Lead Well Pulse. And I'm a certified guide in that assessment. But it's based on the idea that the effectiveness of leadership is in the level of well-being of the leaders. And that assessment is verified by the University of Colorado at Colorado Springs. So really, this is the cutting edge of what the business world is looking at now.
What's that called again, that assessment?
It's called the Be Well, Lead Well Pulse.
Okay.
And it's by Wisdom Works. That's the overarching business entity that created the Be Well, Lead Well Pulse. Yeah. And one of their clients was Coca-Cola. So it's pretty major. And yeah, that's what we're looking at moving forward. And you can kind of tell that with the state of things right now, that we need to focus and prioritize well-being.
Yeah, 100%. I think your story and everything really resonates with our industry, and it's becoming something that people are speaking about more and more open to sharing. So we really appreciate you coming and joining us today. We appreciate everyone in the audience that took time out of their busy days to listen to Megan's story and join Jim and I on another Roomvo University webinar. To reiterate, Jim has shared Megan's email in the chat. So if you do have any questions or want to chat with Megan following the webinar, her email is there, as well as a link to the FC News article that she wrote. So we appreciate everyone's time. Megan, thank you again for joining us, and hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their day.
You too, guys. Have
Bye.
a safe journey.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.